Larry came in the house and saw all his sheets burnt and then beat her ass. In my parents' house, how many pointer sisters is it? First person I told that I was with child was my sister Anita, a person I could always count on when the chips were down. So when we read the Anita Pointer book, I thought because of her character and because of her positioning within the sisters that she pretty much was the oldest, but she wasn't. And now that I'm seeing Ruth being the oldest confide in Anita, now I see why, or remember why I thought that Anita was the oldest. I asked her to break the news to our parents. Daddy and Mom took it calmly, much to my amazement, saying they'd do whatever they could to help me get through it all. The first thing Daddy wanted to know was when Larry would make an honest woman out of his little girl. And he didn't waste any time asking Larry just that the next time that he came over to the house. They sat right down for a man-to-man chat. I wouldn't be surprised at all if the conversation included mention of the gleaming shotgun Daddy kept around in case he ran into a sinner with a greater fear of a buckshot than of the Lord. I guess this is where they got the term shotgun wedding. But could you picture that nowadays? I don't see that happening. Never. Anything after the 80s, the answer would be no. You got the crack epidemic, because once that came into play, all hell broke loose. Because, all the ninjas had guns then, pistols, ARs, all weaponry. And could you picture a father trying to make one of these three dudes marry their daughter? The father will pull out the shotgun, and then the husband to be, or maybe to be or not to be, will pull out the blicker like, Pops, come on, what you gonna do with that shotgun? Times have really changed, I'm telling you. Crack changed a whole lot in my years. They're gonna be talking about the crack forever. And you know what I was telling BFF the other day? I said, you gotta remember that a lot of these movies are centered around the 80s, the crack era. We are fortunate enough to have witnessed it with our own eyes. We can look at movies and be like, yep, that happened. My handsome fiance did some modeling on the side and was often paid to escort young women to cotillion balls because he was such an exceptional dancer. Hold on. Escort, model, paid. Miss Ruth. Everything is just sounding very Magic Mikey-ish to me. Okay? And don't look at me like I'm like some kind of perversion. Or don't be like, nay, some kind of perversion. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the facts is there. Pay, escort, dance. Looking back, I knew what that could lead to, given his reputation. So I was glad to drive him around to pick up some work. I was both his chauffeur and his secretary, even to the point of filling out his job applications for him. One time I was tired and begged off, and when he insisted I come along, I asked why he couldn't handle it himself. Up popped another neon board. I can't read, he said. What I should have done was run for the hills or take a flying leap off the Oakland Bay Bridge, but I felt sorry for my poor illiterate man who could only get by on his good looks. We were married on August 9th, 1964, and our daughter, Fawn, arrived in January of the next year. We were so young and broke that we had no choice but to move into my parents' home. By then, Aaron and Fritz were out of the house and there was room. Not that it mattered much because my new husband didn't waste any time making himself scarce. The first time he didn't come home, I pathetically stayed up all night worrying that he'd been in an accident and was lying in a ditch somewhere. He was lying somewhere, all right, but it wasn't in a ditch. Days went by, and I thought I was going to lose my mind. Finally, someone in the know clued me in that he was with another woman. She said in the book that she did the Bernadine scene. You know, what did I just watch recently? Some kind of TV One or TV or BET Plus movie that I was like, ooh, this bitch been waiting her whole life to recreate that scene. Remember in Waiting to Exhale when Bernadine threw all his clothes in his favorite drop top Mercedes car, okay, lit a match, then snapped her fingers and walked away, and cut her hair. It didn't end up quite the same. She said that the husband, Larry, came in the house and saw all his sheets burnt and then beat her ass. In my parents' house? You gonna beat my ass in my parents' house? How many Pointer Sisters is it? The boy is going to kill you when he gets home, Mama cried. He almost did. When Larry finally found his way home and discovered the charred remains of his wardrobe, he beat on me like a punching bag. In my mama's home? In my Peppy's home with my mama and daddy over there in the next room? That's unforeseeable, Miss Ruth. That's hard to believe, okay? But that's kind of, I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying, come on now. It's 4 sisters. And she got brothers. Come on now. God knows how bad it would have gotten if my dad hadn't finally broken it up. Okay, Pappy stepped in. I should have left him for good then. My parents had never behaved like this, and I knew all marriages weren't perfect. I had seen a few fights in my day between some aunts and uncles, but I never thought my life would end up this pathetic. It was humiliating. Yeah, I know about that feeling. Now, you know her mama, okay? She believed in the marriage, in the sanctimony of the marriage. And try and work it out. Y'all pray away the beatings. You know, you pray that he learns how to keep his hands to himself, and y'all just work it out. Child, she moved in with him at his parents' house. Now, was they all living under the stairs with the rest of the people? I moved back with Larry at his parents' home across town. However, that didn't last long. Several of Larry's brothers were known players, and one night an angry woman showed up with a gun looking for the one who done her wrong. She blew up that house with a shotgun, and everybody hit the floor. I beat it right back to my parents' house. After a few months, Larry and I finally moved back in together and got a small apartment in Lake Merritt. Our domestic bliss didn't last very long. Soon after we moved in, I found out I was pregnant again. My response to this news was to go to some older girlfriend for advice on how to force a miscarriage. My mother told me that back in the day, women or young girls would use hangers to terminate the pregnancy. Now, some of you ladies that are more seasoned than I am, can you put down in the comments and let me know if that is true or not? It's just hard, very, very hard for me to believe that a woman would literally put that up there and yank. I'm looking for y'all to tell me the truth, okay? Because my mama ain't here for me to say to her, Mama, was you lying to me about that? So moving back to Miss Ruth, some of her people told her to drink, I don't know, some liquor called Old Crow whiskey with some generic pills. She said all she got was drunk. I called my mother and told her what I had done. And she came over to my little apartment to watch my infant daughter fawn and me while I sobered up. I can't believe how naive and stupid I was at the time, but now I thank God that he spared both my son and me. Malik was born in December 1965, and Larry didn't even know about his birth until a few months later. It was around then that the Church of God started turning the screws on my father to resign his position. Ooh. y'all, I'm finna give you church folks the business. But I love y'all. Isn't it funny that the same people that build you up will tear you completely down? Unbelievable. Aaron was too involved with sports to get into much trouble, but my brother Fritz was an avowed atheist who ended up serving a term in what was then known as the California Youth Authority Juvenile Prison for some petty crimes. He has since told me that he wasn't exactly miserable there. Tongues wagged most furiously about the Reverend Pointer's 4 wayward daughters who laughed too much, enjoyed themselves way too much at parties, and had a couple of children out of wedlock. As much as it pains me to say this, me getting pregnant before I got married to Larry was a real blow to my family's ministry. Regardless of how it made my mom and dad look, they forgave me and told me it was all going to work out in the end. That was unacceptable to the sanctimonious church crowd, and when Daddy ignored hints that he should voluntarily step aside from the pulpit, they voted to remove him from the church. They didn't even give him a pension. When I read this in Anita's book, I was pissed off then, and I'm pissed off now. It be so much judgment, man, especially you friggin' fan waving this. Ooh, you hoes are terrible. I remember one time when I was in my daddy's church. Ooh. Child, and I'm telling you, every single woman wanted to feed me cake. You hear me? And I'm saying to myself, you dumb bitches. Do you know how many other dumb bitches then offered me to come to their house and have Sunday dinner? You dumb Decades later, it still makes me cry how Daddy was deserted by the church he built. I'm disgusted. My parents uprooted themselves from Arkansas to start that church and dedicated more than 25 years of their lives to nurturing it. When Daddy got the boot, he suffered an emotional breakdown. He never held a decent job after that because he was considered too old to do anything else. It broke his heart and his spirit. Broke mine too. It also smashed whatever faith I had left. There had to be a better world somewhere else, and I went looking for it. I didn't have to look far. It was the height of the civil rights, black power, and black arts movement in the United States. The childhood rebellion that stirred during my strict church upbringing was tame compared to what was on tap for me. I dove into the infamous Haight-Ashbury hippie drug-free love scene, losing myself in a haze of alcohol and drugs, and anything else I thought would blot out my unhappy youth, rigid upbringing, and bad girl guilt. It pains me more than I can convey to confess that I even considered putting my own children up for adoption. Miss Ruth, thank you very much for being honest. I'm sure that there are other women out there who have considered that themselves. And just by you putting it in this book, they realize that their thoughts doesn't make them bad or terrible moms. It's just a thought. I had no clue how to raise them, nor any inclination to learn. My mother ended up caring for Fawn, and Malik went with Larry's family. I should have stayed there, but as immature and filled with self-loathing as I was, I let myself be sweet-talked into getting back with Larry, even though he was beating me up regularly. To cope with the mounting physical and emotional pain, I began to take Benzedrine, Speed, and Red Devils, barbiturates, and wash them down with Christian Brothers brandy. Looking back, I suppose this was how the cycle of addictive behaviors that mushroomed when the Pointer Sisters became famous got its start. I tried leaving Larry several times, but he said he'd see me dead first and even threatened to kill my family when he was done with me. I believed him, having once seen Larry beat my sister Bonnie almost to death with an old-fashioned metal phone. Nick, what? What? You let your husband/baby father beat up your sister? How does that happen, Clark? Now, I'm lost on that one, brother. Miss Ruth, special guest. That would be something that I would need more clarification on, okay? Because how? How does that happen? Y'all don't believe in jumping? The Pointer Sisters, they don't jump? Y'all don't jump? Do y'all pray instead of jump? When he heard about Larry's behavior, Daddy gave me his trusty shotgun and told me not to hesitate to use it. Okay, that sounds more like it. I, honest to God, walked around in public with that shotgun in my arms. I even carried it with me once when I went to a bar to meet a guy. When I got there, I kissed him on the cheek and put the gun on the floor within easy reach. Nobody said a thing about it. Would you? Thanks to my double-barreled equalizer, I was no longer so scared of Larry. When I found out he was dating and also abusing a high school rival of mine named Hazel, that was the final straw. First, I called Hazel's mama. You say that you love